Welcome to SunMed's podcast. Today we are diving into probably one of the biggest topics we see in clinic, which is pain. And it really covers a lot of things: physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain. And yeah, we see it heaps in clinic. And we're going to look at it from a few different angles today around Eastern medicine perspective, where it comes from, how to have a different relationship with it, and how to help treat it. I'd love to understand from your perspective, what is pain? Why
Well,
is pain? Why does it exist?
You'll have to ask someone else about that. I think the thing I want to expand on that you just mentioned is you've mentioned physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain. You can't separate them.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
That's the first thing that people.
In a circle.
It's all in a circle. That's one thing I really want people to hit home is you can't separate physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain. Because if you've got, I'll just use my own examples. So when I've had severe back pain, my thoughts go, I'm so weak, I'm pathetic, I'm this, I'm that, and just all of my worst belief systems come out. That then triggers my body to feel fear. And then that escalates, the pain gets even worse. And so the more pain I have, the more bad thoughts I have, the more bad feelings I have. And if I can change any of them, the feeling, the thought, or the physical pain, if there is a structural thing, it changes the whole lot. And so you can get on or off at any platform, whether it be physical, mental, or emotional. And that's where people like Louise Hay that say your lower back pain is support and all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, cool. Could be, probably not for everyone. Everyone's got their own bits, but there'll be some sort of thought pattern
and meaning
that you've got going on. And I see it all the time in clinic where people, they say their belief system out loud, but they can't even see it. It's obvious to me, but it's I can't make someone become self-aware. So it's their own self-awareness journey that comes with that. But knowing that there's a thought that will come with the physical pain, a feeling that will come with the physical pain, they can't be separated. And I've treated literally thousands of people, and it's true for everyone. But a lot of people cannot see that.
It is tricky sometimes, and I think I can definitely relate on my journey.
Well, you've had a hectic journey with chronic pain.
I had chronic pain for over half my life, 15 years, which I only started dealing with, as 5 years ago properly. And there definitely was emotional, mental story, probably even ancestral pain tied into that, which is a whole thing in itself. But
past lives creeping up on you.
Grab me by the shoulder. But it's so intertwined, and I've also had a whole journey with emotional pain that becomes then extremely physical and debilitating in my chest. But there's nothing wrong with my chest. I'm not having heart problems or anything like that. It's definitely emotional, but it's so physical. So I 100% know from my own journey as well that that's just so true. And it's so interlinked. And like you said, you can get in and on and off at any train. And I think for me with that pain, I sort of had to do it in sections. I've done a bit of emotional work, and then I've done some physical work on it. And I sort of come at it from both angles at different times. And that's helped, especially with my chronic pain. It's sort of been a slow and steady journey of healing it from both ends and weaving it together to actually now be in a space where I can say, yeah, I'm not in pain every day, which is phenomenal.
So from your perspective then, what was probably was there one thing, or was that helped you with that, or was there a multitude of things?
Well, yeah, it's a really good question. I think for me, the first thing was I had to realize I was in pain.
Yeah.
I know that sounds really stupid, but when you have chronic pain and you're in pain every day, 24/7, you kind of just get used to the fact that it's there. And and you witnessed this firsthand, I actually had to have a breakdown and go, oh my God, I'm in pain and I actually need to do something about this. I actually stopped making excuses for going and doing martial arts. And then when I started doing it, I was like, oh, I actually can't do this to the fullest ability. And I sort of still realized that, and I was getting a bit of physical help with it. But it wasn't until I had that full emotional breakdown of going, oh my God, I actually need to do something about this. And I need to have some vulnerability about seeking help, that's when it started to unravel for me. And I had to have really consistent action. But I did actually have a really amazing insight in Vipassana into pain, in going into the pain. So the pain was in my shoulder mainly, but also just my whole left side of my body. In meditation and just going into the spot where this chronic pain was. Like my first Vipassana was insanely painful because I was just so uncomfortable. But I had this one point where I just went into the center of the pain and it just, it disappeared. And it was just like, it was just there with my whole body. Like there wasn't pain. And it was just, I could see that there was just this constriction of everything that had been focusing in there. And I had all these realizations about ancestral stuff and those sorts of things. And I think that was one point that started me going, oh, this isn't actually mine. I don't have to carry it. But until I was ready to start doing something about it physically as well, it didn't really shift for me because I think I was still running from a lot of things and moving around too much. There was a lot of consistency that had to happen with something that had been in my body for so long. It wasn't like a quick fix.
So what I'm hearing is the first step to healing your pain was awareness.
100%. And awareness and also asking for help, which isn't necessarily something like,
it's hard for a lot of people to do.
Yeah, it is. And being ready. There was like, I went and saw, we see this a lot in clinic and I know it because when I see it in clinic and I know it from my own journey, I went and saw this amazing osteopath in Byron. He like cracked my shoulder and I woke up the next day with no pain for the first time. And I was like, whoa. And you think that from there, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to do everything and I'm going to do this. But there was something that stopped me, that I wasn't quite ready to like continue putting myself first. It was almost like I was actually holding myself in pain because I wasn't allowing myself to be able to live in my fullest expression. This was becoming my reason for not doing all the things that I wanted to do in my life. And so I stopped myself from moving forward. And so I was like, oh, here's all the answers. This is actually a way that I could heal this, but I'm not ready. I'm just going to keep sabotaging a little bit, and it was scary. It was like, whoa, I could live without pain. And that was actually really confronting because it had been there for so long. There was an identity shift that had to happen as well well, who am I going to be if I'm not in pain every day and don't have that reason for not doing things, if that makes sense?
It does. I mean, like I physically my pain hasn't lasted for long. So I've never had pain that's lasted more than like a couple of weeks. So I've never really experienced like chronic pain that I'm aware of. I may have it, but I'm not aware of it. But I've had like mental pain.
Yeah.
And so like severe depression, severe anxiety, borderline schizophrenic.
Yeah.
And so the first thing is like, again, it's awareness. And it's like, oh, what am I depressed about? What do I have to be depressed about? Why am I anxious? Why am I hearing voices? And understanding that. And then once you like, and this is only something I've learned very recently, first time when we did the Hoffman process, was being compassionate towards the suffering that we have. And that was like, okay, it's like, cool, like here's your awareness. Now you got to be compassionate to yourself. And compassion is self-compassion can be incredibly difficult.
It can
and it's the lack of compassion for self that causes you not to go and fix it.
That's exactly right.
In the first place,
I was being hard on myself.
Yeah.
I was punishing myself
because of the mental,
because I thought I should punish myself.
the mental beliefs that go with it.
Yeah,
it's wild. And that, so again, it comes back physical, mental, emotional.
Yeah,
we can get on or off anytime.
Yeah,
and it's like there's always going to be a belief. There's always going to be a thought. There's always going to be an emotion related to the physical thing. Once we can, get in and untie all of those things, you can just let them go.
Totally.
And heal it. And, sometimes, in Chinese medicine, there's so many different causes of pain. So there's physical trauma. So you could get hit by something and taken out. You could get a wind invasion into your body, which will cause pain. And that pain will then, with wind, will travel around. You can get heat invasion into the body, which causes the body to swell and get bigger and, cause inflammation. Or you can have cold invade the body, where it causes everything to contract and get smaller and tighter. You can have a damp invasion into the body. So like the humidity can penetrate into the body and cause pain. You can have dryness get into your body and cause pain. Like there's so many different types, and they're like, we would say that that's an external pathogen penetrating into the body to cause pain. But then there's some people that believe if you have the right defensive chi, which comes from like the emotions being regulated, that those things will never get in.
Mm.
And so some people say the root cause of the pain is actually the emotions being stuck in the body. So it's actually wild, like how many things can cause pain, and just like the stagnation of energy moving through the body can cause constriction and pain. And, that can be seen as an emotional stagnation, mainly is, or, it might be a food stagnation. You ate too much and it causes pain. It's crazy.
Yeah, definitely. It's quite nuanced, isn't it? There's quite a lot of different things. I was just thinking before as well, your question about like what's up, the first step of that awareness. And I love how you're saying it takes then compassion, excuse me. And I think it's like that compassion to self and that vulnerability. And then like, it's then courage to ask yourself, what do I need to do differently? What beliefs do I need to change? Who do I need to help? What treatments do I need to seek? What lifestyle changes do I need to make? All those take courage to take that new step, which is definitely was a big one for me as well. And what you're talking about then, all these other different things, external things that can create pain. What about lifestyle and diet and stress? How, I think more people are definitely becoming aware of how these things do. But I guess with the Eastern medicine perspective, how do they contribute to either relieving or creating pain?
If you go against nature, it will cause pain. So nature is the flow of life. So big picture to little picture. So we'll say the seasons as the biggest picture. So we're currently in spring. Spring goes summer, summer then becomes autumn, autumn then becomes winter. And that is a flow of life that moves up and down. If you roll with that, you'll find the flow. So in winter, you should go indoors, be more quiet. In summer, be more expressive, go outwards. And we used to, because we were so connected to nature, we used to follow that. We used to migrate our seasons.
Yes. And all of our rituals were evolved around.
Yeah. And we'd move where we lived according to the seasons. So that's following the flow of life. Now with technology, we ignore that. And so we're causing friction between nature and ourselves because we're trying to control nature, and that causes friction. Friction causes pain. And that pain may be that you get a cold in summer from sitting in front of an air conditioner, when you would only get that type of cold in winter when you've been out in a cold breeze. And so it changes when the symptoms and the disease or pain is going to affect you. From a micro scale, it can be like staying up late, waking up late. Sometimes it's good to do that. Sometimes it's not, depending on what time of season it is, working night shifts is going to cause pain. So from a lifestyle perspective, there's so many different ways and do that, because basically if we ignore the flow of life and we try to change the flow of life, you think of flow like going down a river. And if you try to hold on to the sides and you're in a rapid, it's going to tear you apart and it's going to cause a lot of pain. But if you kind of just like tuck in and try and follow the flow of the river, it will guide you. You're probably going to hit some rocks and stuff. But the
less resistance you have to it.
You'll pop out on the shore hopefully, or drown, but then there's no pain. So so lifestyle wise, it's like following the flows of nature is going to be the path of least resistance for pain.
Yeah, beautiful. I'm also just thinking about, like, when you were talking about like those seasonal cycles, I think about it very much as like from a woman's perspective as well. Like we have our cycles. And one of the biggest indicators that there's something wrong with my body and my own flow is, I know that if I have pain when I have my cycle, I know that my body is trying to tell me, hey, you need to adjust something here.
Yeah.
Because while it's such a common thing to have pain with a cycle, it's actually not normal.
No.
Like we shouldn't, as women, experience painful cycles. No. Accepted now that you should be in pain, and that, you should be pissed off at PMSing, and all these things are like common projections of what it's like to have a cycle. Yet that's actually your body saying, hey, I need help. We need to change things. You're out of sync.
Yeah.
And you can actually experience periods without pain. I wish more women knew this. I really do.
It's one of the most common things that I see in clinic. Was I'll be treating women for something else. No, my period's normal. I haven't had any pain with my period. I'm like, about that.
Yeah.
But again, it's like those 6 invasions that we were talking about before. You can get them in your uterus. So you can get the cold in your uterus. You can get blood stasis in the uterus, you can get heat in the uterus, you can get dampness in the uterus, and it causes different types of pain.
Mm.
And so if the pain gets better with a hot water bottle, it's potentially cold in there. If it gets better with movement, it's potentially blood stasis. If it gets better if it feels like it's a bearing down and heavy pain, and then it might be damp in there. There's so many different perspectives on what actually the pain is being caused from a gynecological perspective again. And that's why it's like good to get the right diagnosis. And sometimes it takes a couple of shots getting the diagnosis right.
Yeah, a little bit of testing. Yeah.
Because sometimes it can also be mixed. Yeah, so you can have a mixed pattern of stuff going on, which is
so confusing. Explain that. I'm like,
and it's confusing for us too because nothing's textbook.
Yeah,
and it's like that is very rare that you see textbook people in clinic. You only ever get people. You don't get I love it when I get a textbook case. It's like, oh, that's that. Here you go, take that, and they're like, oh my god, you're a miracle.
That's not every case.
No,
very rarely though, and that's why it does take a bit of time though.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole rhythm to how you work with people, and the more intensive upfront, and that's figuring things out and getting movement, and then you can peter things out in time. But it does take time to heal things, and that's been my journey as well with my pain. It's taken time and a few different things working together.
And here's the thing,
and my own responsibility. That was the biggest changer. And
then it's like, okay, cool. Like say someone does have, like, I'm just going to use this as an example, has cold in their uterus, and then they still have the same beliefs, same lifestyle, and I treat them for say 6 to 12 weeks and the pain goes away, but then they go back to the same lifestyle, same diet, same belief system, same things, it's going to come back. And so it's addressing the whole picture, not just the pain.
Yeah, not just the physical aspect, which I think is where Western medicine just narrows down on, like, oh, it's in your uterus, we'll just do something with that. Whereas it's like, you've got to look at the whole body working together. And then it's also like, and then there's the person. So who are they? What are their story?
So like when I hear someone say that they're going to a holistic doctor, and it's like, oh, so they're looking at their diet, their exercise, and maybe some treatment protocol. That's not holistic. Holistic is you're living in sync with nature. You're living in sync with light, but day and night. You're living in sync with everything. The bigger picture. That's holistic. And that's what Eastern medicine is based off, is the whole thing, not just what's going on, diet, lifestyle, and sleep. There's so much more to it.
Yeah.
Remember when we were reading that book about feng shui by the acupuncturist?
Yes.
And he's like, he's talking about how he's treating a person for pain. If they didn't, he's like, he was a master acupuncturist. So he's like, he was the guy, these guys are seeing like 200-300 people a day. Yeah. And so like they're treating people, and if they don't get better, he's like, right, I'm coming to your house to look at your feng shui. And this guy was treating someone for vomiting, and he found out that they were taking their rubbish out through the front door, gets them to take the rubbish out through the back door. Problem solved. I was like, what?
It's wild. I know. And reading that book is definitely one of the things that really, I love changing spaces and moving things around and cleaning things out. And but that reading that book even more made me go, oh my God, I want to study. But I feel like it's quite intuitive as well. Like,
it is intuitive.
You can just look at that and go, oh, well, that makes sense when you think about it, but it's not something you would necessarily think about changing. But,
no. But yeah. You wouldn't think it's making you vomit.
No, but isn't it? It's like, it is. It's your whole environment, inside, externally, community, nature. It's
everything, relationships. It's all connected. And, that's a big one. It's like I've seen people like working in rehabs, particularly who have pain or addiction, because addiction and pain is the same thing neurochemically. Explain that. It's like literally the same piece of brain cells that cause pain and pleasure. Whoever created the human body, or like if we grew organically, whatever, I don't know, wasn't there. Pain and pleasure are literally registered in the same part of the brain. So this is what explains, BDSM, like why people get off on being given pain.
Yeah.
Because if you inflict pain enough, it will eventually become pleasure. If you go to too much pleasure, it will eventually become pain. And that's the addiction cycle. And so that was my biggest insight since opening clinic, is realizing that pain and addiction are the same thing. And we are addicted to our own pains and our own pleasures. And so it's that, running away and chasing of that. Yeah, it is. It's, Buddha was a neuroscientist. Yeah, the OG neuroscientist. And the thing that I've seen like working in rehabs was that people in pain would get better, and then they go back to their own old lives, and the people around them see them as that person in pain, and they treat them like that person in pain. So they bring the pain back because they don't change their relationship with them. So if you want to really change pain, you have to change, everyone around you also has to change, especially if it's chronic pain, because if not everyone changes, someone is going to convince you that you still have the pain. And I see it a lot, that our relationships bring people back into the same pain. And especially if the person doesn't have a strong enough awareness, self-awareness, or they're so involved in that it will re-afflict that same pain to come back.
Yeah, I can definitely see that in terms of like my journey with this chronic pain is there was that identity shift of like, oh, who am I without this pain then? And this reason that I have been for holding myself back and for punishing myself in my life. I have to create a new identity of someone who isn't in pain. And also I have to be around people that see me as not that person anymore. And I think that's a massive journey with any transformation. It's a rites of passage. And as we've learned in the rites of passage framework, like there's everyone in the community around the person who's going through the transformation has a ladder of progression. And if everyone isn't stepping up the ladder and basically accepting this person's change and changing and evolving with them, it could be up a ladder, or it could be, it could be circular as well. They're always going to be wanting to push you back into the identity of whoever it is, the addict, the person in pain, whatever, because they're not willing to change who they are around you.
The fatigue, whatever it is.
Yeah. They've made a relationship with you as that identity. And so, this is, I think, why it's so important in a partnership, like even as a couple, it's like we have to be willing to grow together, because otherwise we're going to, and I'm sure we do this, and particularly even just, I'm thinking around like coffee and things like that, we like push each other back into it because one of us isn't willing to change.
Yeah.
It's so tricky, isn't it? It's like,
well, that's where the compassion comes.
We just have to treat it. Everyone has to help each other.
Yeah. And that's where the compassion comes into it.
Yeah.
Again, so it's like being compassionate to self and then others.
Yeah.
And so really holding that compassion for all people at all times, which can be very difficult.
So difficult.
Because it's like everyone will come in and just challenge that straight away. It's like, oh yeah, you think you're compassionate, do you? How about when I talk to you like this?
Yeah.
Are you still going to be compassionate?
Yeah.
And, again, something that we've seen a lot in clinic is people that come in and they can be quite rude to us and like angry and whatnot. And it's like, we used to get really, when we first opened the clinic, we'd get really triggered by it. It's like, oh, they're an asshole. And it's like, oh, and then they turn into the sweetest, kindest people ever.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, they're in pain. And you just don't realize that.
No.
And then it's like, and then again, it's that Buddhist thing, like all people are suffering.
You don't know where someone's in
exactly. Just understanding that everyone's in pain at some level.
Yeah. They're in suffering. And I know that with my own journey, like as the pain started lifting, I was like, oh, I've been really cranky because I don't have the same bandwidth now that I used to, because I was in pain. So I'd be really quite short with people a lot because I was just in pain all the time and I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have the awareness around it. So no wonder I was getting things thrown back at me. But
no.
What? Is there anything else that you want to add around pain and treatment of pain or anything before we wrap this up?
Should we talk about acupuncture?
Does acupuncture and Chinese medicine and herbs help with pain?
Maybe.
Possibly?
Possibly. I mean, again, this is a beautiful thing about acupuncture is it works on all those levels without having to sit there and talk about your life and go through all that. It helps to improve the self-awareness around the pain. And it does. It produces opiate receptors. It produces endocannabinoid receptors. It helps people trip out like with those natural endogenous painkillers in the body. And so it helps with pain relief. It helps the body to regenerate. The body heals itself.
And emotional release. Like I definitely cried on the table.
Yeah. So it helps the body to move energy, to help keep those emotions regulated and all of that sort of stuff. And then there's herbs that have painkillers in them and, treating all those different things we were talking about before, like the damp, the wind, the cold, the heat, all of those coming in and out of your system. The herbs help to regulate that. And you can give herbs that help to target the lower back or the knees or the joints or the shoulder or whatever. Those herbs will actually target that part of the body or that part of the spine or wherever it is. So they can specifically target that. But acupuncture can also make people self-aware as well. Like the amount of times, like I've seen people like just go, oh, I didn't realize that I had this thought pattern, or I didn't realize I had this emotion that went with this pain. Oh, I had this realization. It's like,
Yes. See it a
yeah.
lot.
And there's a great book in Chinese medicine called Dragon Rises, Redbird Flies. And it's actually written by a medical doctor that became a psychiatrist because he realized that everything was psychological. And then he became a Chinese medicine practitioner, and he wrote this amazing book. And one of the things he talks about was he saw people become more self-aware in 10 sessions of acupuncture than 10 years of psychotherapy.
Bloody hell, that's incredible.
It's wild.
I mean, I've definitely seen exactly what you're talking about in clinic, and people often come in because they have, oh, I've got pain here, I've got pain there, and they leave with other things being fixed or happier relationships or, changing jobs.
My husband's so different since he's been coming in.
We hear that a lot, actually. It's probably one of the best feedbacks we hear a lot. Literally get wives ringing us or messaging us being like, I don't know what you've done to him, but keep doing it.
I'll pay for all of his sessions.
It's coming up tomorrow, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, no, I think it's amazing. And yeah, obviously we're both advocates for acupuncture. Is there anything else that you want to add?
Probably.
We can do more.
Yeah.
I think it would be fabulous.
Ask us questions. Give us some questions that you want to know, and then we can go into more detail about what it is that you want to know.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a huge topic.
It's a massive topic.
We can talk about it so much more.
Yeah. So give me some specific questions and let's get this conversation going both ways.
Totally. And join us in school for some practices. And I was just thinking as well, we really touched on the lifestyle and environment. You've got a couple of really great audits in there that people can do to help see where there's some areas that they can specifically hone in on to help make the changes long-term for yourself. And they're just free audits. They're in school. So jump in and have a look at those. And they're only about 20, 30 minutes each, I think. But yeah, they're a really great place to start if you don't know where to start and you want just something that you can do, in your pajamas at home with a cup of tea. Yeah, please ask us questions. Jump in school. We'll put a little breath practice in there for you as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Done.